Today, I'm going to talk about the fastest way that you can reverse a fatty liver naturally. And you can do this without expensive medications by using a simple diet and some lifestyle changes. But first, I need to explain to you what is a fatty liver and why it's important to avoid it. And if you have it, why you need to deal with it. All right? Ready? Let's go ahead and dive right in. So, the first question is, what is a fatty liver, right? The liver is one of the most important organs in your body, and a fatty liver is a potentially dangerous condition where your liver becomes clogged with excess fat. And this prevents the liver from doing its job, and that job is to serve as your body's detoxification organ. So you probably have heard about detoxes, right? In like a detox spa or detox protocol. Your liver does it all the time. Now, let's talk a little bit about your liver. Your liver is one of the largest organs in the body. It weighs about 3 pounds, all right? So that's heavier than a couple of sets of tennis shoes. And it sits in the upper right quadrant of your belly, just underneath your ribs, all right? Like right around here. And in addition to detoxing your blood, your liver also makes key proteins that allow your blood to clot if you ever get an injury, so you don't bleed out. And that's a really important function. So your liver actually cleans the blood, detoxifies the blood, takes out all the toxins, and it makes proteins in order to be able to clot your blood should you actually have an injury. Now, the liver does another thing, which is that it makes bile. Bile is an acid that breaks down food for better digestion, and you need it to be able to digest your food, especially fatty foods. And your liver stores the bile in another organ that's located right next door to it, right underneath it, actually, and that's called the gallbladder. All right. So if you ever hear of someone having gallstones, that's actually little stones that can actually form in your gallbladder. The gallbladder is sitting underneath and just kind of slightly behind the liver. Gallstones, that happens. The other thing you've probably heard of, perhaps, is gallbladder cancer. And that's often a cancer of the ducts that connect the gallbladder to the liver. That's a really nasty type of cancer, very difficult to actually treat. But here you actually have this incredible system that under healthy conditions forms a detox function, creates proteins that actually help your blood clot, and produces bile to help you digest. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about this detox function, because every single drop of blood in your body, every ounce of blood that your heart pumps out, right, injects it right into your body, has to go through your liver. And your liver will kind of scrub the blood out of all the toxins. And this includes any toxins that you might have been exposed to from the environment. And that could be from your shampoo, that could be from chemicals in your food, could be from medications, could be from the alcohol that you're actually drinking. Your liver has got to actually clean it all out. And by the way, for alcohol, that's why if you drink a lot of alcohol, the alcohol, which is poison to your cells, can knock out the liver. And that's how you hear about alcoholic cirrhosis. That's too much alcohol poisoning the liver, knocking out the detox function, and now your liver starts to scar. That's what the cirrhosis means. So alcoholic cirrhosis is actually basically booze knocking out your liver, so then you can't detox anymore. And you can tell when somebody's actually very, very sick when they don't actually have their detox function in the liver. They turn yellow, they actually can have seizures, they have mental status changes. It's bad, all right? So back to the healthy liver. The healthy liver is crucial for your health, all right? So what could go wrong besides the alcohol I just mentioned? Well, fatty liver can occur when you continuously overconsume food. Now, you probably have overconsumed food, as have I, and so you're thinking like, well, wait a minute, I've overeaten sometimes. Does that mean I've got fatty liver? Well, not necessarily. Let me tell you how this works. When you actually eat food, your food is actually your body's fuel, right? And that fuel gets stored in your body because your body needs energy. Now, some of the fuel is in the blood, so you can actually just use that fuel right away. Some of the fuel gets put into your muscle, all right, so that your muscle can actually be active. All right. Muscles need fuel. Some of the extra fuel gets stored in your fat cells. These are cells called adipocytes. Adipose meaning fat, adipocytes meaning the cells that make up fat. Those are your storage tanks, your fuel tanks, like the fuel tanks of your car. Those are the fuel tanks for energy in your body. And anything excess actually winds up getting stored in the liver. You know why? Because the liver's got to clean it all up. All right. So overeating can actually cause fatty liver if you actually really overwhelm your storage capacity. All right. So here, let me explain a little bit more for this to you. When you sit down for a meal, your metabolism is hardwired to perform in a particular way. As I said, food is a fuel for our body the way that gasoline is fuel for your car. And just like a car, you're probably not paying any attention to the fuel gauge until something actually happens and the fuel gauge tells you that you're running on empty, low on gas. And then what happens, right? If you're driving a car, once your fuel gauge reads low or near empty, all you can do is to think about actually getting to a gas station, a filling station, to be able to get more fuel or petrol, depending on where you're living, all right? We look for a filling station. Well, our body's fuel gauge, when it's running low, tells us to look for our fuel for our body, and that's food. It tells our brain, we got to find some fuel, which is food, and then we got to go sit down to eat. You ever get really, really hungry, you know, that hanger kind of feeling or kind of jittery feeling, and you just feel like, man, I got to find something to eat. That's actually the fuel gauge in your body saying, we need some gas, all right? We need to actually fill up. Okay, now, when you're eating a normal meal, the energy from that food that we eat gets swallowed, it goes into the stomach, and it gets absorbed in the stomach, goes into our bloodstream, and then that energy, all right, which can be blood glucose, is brought into our cells. Now, the metabolism system that brings that energy into our cells normally uses insulin. Now, insulin is a hormone made by your pancreas, another organ that lives right next door to your liver, actually. So here you have the pancreas that makes the insulin, the liver that detoxes the blood, the gallbladder underneath it that actually helps digestion. You get it, like this whole system sits underneath our ribs. On the right side, that's the liver. Left side is where the pancreas is, and the stomach is. Very, very important. The insulin made by the pancreas actually draws blood glucose into your cells, whether it's muscle, whether it's fat cells. And the fat cells produce another hormone called adiponectin. Adipo, fat, comes from fat, made by the fat. Adiponectin actually works hand in hand with insulin. These are partners, and insulin works better. You have better insulin sensitivity, better able to bring in the blood glucose when these hormones are working together. You need adiponectin, you need insulin in order to be able to have an efficient metabolism to draw that blood glucose into your body, into your muscles, all right? And anything left over that needs to be stored goes right into your body fat, your fuel tank, to get it stored, all right? In fact, your body fat is one of the primary areas where the fuel is stored. As I mentioned to you, fat cells are like the fuel tanks of your body, the same way that a gas fuel tank in your car is how your car stores its energy. Now, by the way, this fuel that I'm talking about that comes from the food we eat, it's what powers the body to do any kind of activity, whether it's doing the laundry, whether you're cooking, of course, if you're going to the gym and working out, if you're in a hurry, you're running down the airport to catch a flight, but actually just even living and breathing and existing, everything takes energy. And that's why this whole idea of eating food for energy and getting it stored in our body, into our fat cells, into our muscle, in a little bit running around our blood is absolutely critical for us to just stay alive. All right. Now, during the day, your metabolism is hardwired to focus its activities on storing fuel in the body. Right. So it's sensing, it's daytime, going to be eating, however many times you're eating, whether it's 2 or 3 times a day, or maybe some snacks, you're going to be eating. So your body is sort of sitting there ready to actually bring fuel in with that adiponectin and insulin being able to pull that energy into the cells to store, fill up the tank. All right. That's during the day. During the night, When you're sleeping, your body senses you're not eating anymore, okay? And this basically is a period when you're not eating, meaning you're sleeping. You're also fasting. Fasting means not eating. And during the fasting period at night, your body switches gears, all right, like a Ferrari switching gears, all right, from one mode, which is storing fuel, and switching gears to another mode, which is actually burning down fuel from body fat, right? So when you're sleeping, you're actually burning fat. It's pretty cool. And the first place that the body burns fat is in visceral fat. Visceral fat is the kind of fat that is in the tube of your body, all right? It's called visceral because the fat is growing around the guts. The guts are called viscera, all right? And this fat actually can grow really, really large if you overeat, all right? And when your visceral fat gets so huge, it kind of like forms a glove and around your organs, it can actually become inflammatory. And inflammatory fat is really dangerous because the inflammation kind of spills out to the rest of the body, and that sets you up for many, many chronic diseases. All right. So what does all this have to do with fatty liver? All right. Now, the liver will actually store fat if you overconsume food, meaning the fuel. If you load up the muscle, all right, you load up fat cells, all right, and you keep on loading up fat cells, and the fat cells there's a lot of fat cells, so you can keep on loading up the fat cells. Oh, you're still eating? Let's load another one. Fill it up. By the way, every fat cell can expand 3 times its size, 300%. All right, so you're still eating? Oh, let's go fill up some more fat cells, and then some more fat cells. And then where are the fat cells? You know what our body will do? Let's create some new fat cells, new storage tanks using stem cells. So our fat mass actually has stem cells, fat stem cells that can just create more fat cells, more fuel tanks. So you're still eating. Let's go ahead and make some new ones, and then make some new ones, and make some new ones. Okay, it actually takes a lot of overloading to really bulge out your fat, if you get what I'm saying. All right, because fat can expand a lot, up to 3 times its size. But if you continuously overload your fuel, that's day in and day out, week after week, year after year. Check this out. I got a free guide on the 5 drinks to help remove fat from your liver, and it's free. I walk you through why your liver is so important, why you should take care to make sure it's functioning properly in your body, and the 5 drinks I recommend to support it. All you have to do is click on the link below and enjoy. Now, think about it. For most of us, we don't actually start to really indulge in these unhealthy life patterns, and we don't realize how unhealthy they are until we get sort of into our adulthood, right? But overeating, which can start even in childhood, if it's repeated as a pattern, this is where things get dangerous, because what we're always doing is loading and overloading our fat store tanks, right? And when you actually have way more fuel, okay, in your fat, what's going to happen? And by the way, when I say way more fuel than you're burning, you're going to be accumulating fat. Eventually, the fuel will spill out of the fat cells, all right? So fat will actually come out of the cells, goes into the bloodstream, and once it's in the bloodstream, what did I say the liver does? It cleans the blood, right? So the blood gets pumped right into the liver. The liver does its normal job by scrubbing clean the blood. And in the case of the liver, it'll actually pick up the fat cells, and the fat will just live in the liver, all right? And imagine this, right? You're overeating, overconsuming, you're putting more fat into the system, you're overloading the fat capacity, it's spilling out into the bloodstream. This is the problem. It's kind of like if you had a kitchen sink, and you turned on the tap and you ran water into the sink, all right? There's a drain. The drain is actually like burning down fat. The spigot in the sink is actually like loading in fuel by eating foods. If you don't drain the water fast enough, you don't burn that fat down, guess what will happen? The sink will fill all the way up, and then spill over the sides. And now you've got basically an overflowed sink onto the kitchen floor, and it's everywhere. It's a big mess, right? Okay, now when this kind of system happens, an overflow of fat in your fuel tanks, meaning your adipose tissue, your fat mass, it spills onto the blood, it gets sent right to the liver, and the liver's got to clean it up to detox it, and the fat gets trapped in the liver. This is actually a big problem, because when you got fat trapped in the liver, the fat actually takes over the liver. All right. That is why we call this fatty liver. I hope that makes sense. All right. It has to do with eating, overeating, spilling out the fuel, the fat from your fat cells, the fuel tanks, getting the blood, and that blood gets clean, detoxed by the liver, but the fat gets stuck in the liver, and now you've got a fatty liver. And when you have a problem with fatty liver, here's the real problem is that the liver can't do its job to detoxify anymore, and it can't even produce the proteins that you need to actually create blood clots, for example. Eventually, everything will get compromised, and this will become dangerous if you don't actually have your detox organ, because then any toxins in your blood will start building up, whether it's medication, toxins, environmental toxins, or chemicals. And those toxins will build up in your blood, and then every cell in your body will start to suffer because of this buildup of toxin. And eventually, your liver can fail, all right? And then you're in really, really deep trouble. Fatty liver can cause liver failure, and fatty liver is one of the number one causes for the need to have a liver transplant in the United States, all right? It used to be alcoholism or infectious hepatitis. Now it is actually fatty liver. All right. So this is something that's actually happened over the last 20 years. This shift from, alcohol and infection all the way into really kind of behavior, right? This is just overeating. It's not just overeating. It's where you're overeating to the point where fat spills out of your fat cells into your bloodstream and it gets clogged in the liver, and the liver becomes filled with fat. Okay, so what are some of the symptoms of fatty liver? That's kind of important. So how do you know you have fatty liver? Well, people who have fatty liver, this builds up over a long period of time. I'm talking about years. You can feel a little tired, right? Fatigue. You can feel a little malaise. And that's really, you're not quite feeling that right, kind of sick. Can't pin down exactly how you're feeling sick. You just don't feel right. And then eventually, when your liver is actually really stressed out and trying to do its job but can't, you can actually get pain in your right upper quadrant, right? That's right under your ribs on the right-hand side, okay? If you put your hand right where your ribs are on the right-hand side and feel just underneath it, like just put your palm right there, that's where your liver is. And you can actually feel pain there when the liver is actually having a problem. In fact, it can actually contract and it's not doing a good job. In fact, eventually the liver can actually scar, and that becomes cirrhosis, right? Now, when the detox function of the liver is compromised, guess what happens? You can wind up actually having bile buildup in your bloodstream. You can actually have liver enzymes build up. Your skin can turn yellow because of some of these, the pigments in the bile and in your liver enzymes. And when the toxins aren't cleared away and they build up in your skin, you're going to see color changes, right? That's why the skin turns yellow. Now, the whites of the eyes are also a good place to look at evidence for liver failure. I remember, when we were in medical school, we had like a test question, which is like, what's an easy place to look for signs of liver failure if you don't actually do a blood test? Well, the answer is by looking in the white of the eye. You just pull down that lower lid, ask them to look up. You actually see a lot of the white of the sclera, of the eye. And you'll be able to see instead of white, it's actually tinged yellow or even orange. And that's when you know there's a clue that this individual is actually having a problem with their liver, all right? Now, as I mentioned to you, the fat can build up, it can build up, it can build up, and it compromises the function of the liver. So it has more and more trouble doing detox. And then eventually you'll develop cirrhosis. This is a scarring of the liver, replacing the useful liver with scar tissue, all right? And then all these other toxins build up and you have other symptoms and signs and symptoms. Your skin can get really, really itchy because some of the buildup of toxins actually makes your skin itch. The other thing that can happen is that, when the liver isn't passing fluid smoothly through it because it's damaged and it's scarred down, the blood, remember I told you, all the blood in your body gets pumped through the liver, all right, and through the portal vein. Now, when that actually doesn't pump blood smoothly anymore because the liver is damaged and scarred, the fluid is going to back up, all right? It's kind of like having hair in your drain, all right? Even if you run water in it, it's not going to flow smoothly through the drain. So what happens? The water backs up. And that's also what happens in our circulation when you actually have fatty liver, severe end-stage fatty liver, the fluid starts to back up, the blood starts to back up because it can't drain as quickly. And guess where it goes? It actually starts to build up in your belly. So your belly actually has a space called the peritoneum, and the fluid builds it up there. It's like basically a leaking sink. It builds right up, like your peritoneum is a space underneath your sink. It just keeps dripping, and it's like a big pool underneath there. And eventually, that backup pressure of that fluid will also build up fluid into that what we call the dependent part of your body, which means their legs. All right, they're lower in gravity. The fluid builds up, the water runs down your legs, inside the tissue of your legs, and now you've got foot swelling and ankle swelling and calf swelling. You've probably seen people with big swollen calves. It's called edema, and in fact, it's called pitting edema because you can actually press on the flesh and it'll leave a dimple, okay, because the fluid is actually just in the space, the soft tissue itself, the interstitium of the tissue. Got a dimple when you push right in. It'll take a little while for it to come back, or you push really hard, you want to keep that dimple there. All right. That's another sign that you might actually have problems with circulation to your liver. All right. And at the very end stage, where you have all these toxins building up, you're itchy, your eyes are yellow, your skin is yellow, your liver enzymes are, these are from your blood test, are off the charts high. All right. Uremic. You can even have with liver kind of a pickling of your brain. And what you wind up having is a hepatic, which is referring to the liver. The liver is the hepatic organ, encephalopathy, which means that when the toxins build up enough because the liver is sick, hepatic encephalopathy refers to the brain. Now your brain can't function properly. You're confused. All right. And ammonia can build up. In fact, you can even smell ammonia on their breath. These are the things that wind up happening as liver failure progresses. Right. So fatty liver builds up over years. All right. Over a long period of time. And what you want to do is to do something about fatty liver before you get to the end. At the end, you're like really in deep doo-doo. All right. And that's like a medical crisis. So what are the things that you want to do in order to be able to reverse the fatty liver before you get to that end stage? Oh, and by the way, there's one other piece of good news I want to actually tell you, which is that if you are able to reverse the fatty liver, guess what? Your liver can regenerate. So it will replace some of those damaged cells with fresh cells. That's amazing. And in fact, most people don't know this, but the liver is one of the most robust regenerating organs in the body. You can even take a liver, cut 2/3 of it, throw it out. All right. The 1/3 that's left, if you get a good, nice chunk of it, will actually regenerate itself over a period of years. Okay. So liver will regenerate itself. All right. It's very, very resilient to disease because it's such an important organ. All right. But with fatty liver, what you want to do is reverse it before you get to that scarring phase. You don't want cirrhosis. Very hard to actually come back from cirrhosis. But if you want to have fatty liver and you want to actually reverse it, you just want to burn that fat away. Burn that fat out. The liver gets relieved of the burden and it starts to regenerate itself. So that's actually the setup for what I'm telling you want to do in order to be able to reverse fatty liver disease and regenerate your liver so you can get back to detox health. All right. Your liver is the most powerful detox you could ever possibly have. And it does it behind the scenes quietly every single day. Fatty liver threatens this very important function. So let's talk about the 5 steps that you want to take if you have fatty liver, not yet cirrhosis, and you want to kind of reverse the situation, right? Keep in mind, the most important thing you want to do is to unload your liver from excess body fat. You want to burn it off, all right? So here's a couple of things that you can do as first steps, right? These are things, I'm going to tell you things that you can do by yourself at home without the help of the medical system. So the first thing you want to do is extend your natural intermittent fasting window. What am I talking about? I'm talking about intermittent fasting is a period where your body starts to burn down body fat. So when does it actually happen naturally? It happens naturally at night when you're sleeping. When you're sleeping, you're not eating. when you're not eating is called fasting. So when you're sleeping, you're fasting. And because we don't sleep 24 hours a day, all right, we're intermittently sleeping. So we're intermittently fasting. Now, let me explain to you something very, very important. When you're not eating, when you're fasting at night, your body's burning down body fat. It'll burn it from the blood. It'll burn it from your fat cells. And if you have a fatty liver, while you're sleeping, good quality sleep, you'll actually start burning fat away from your liver as well. All right. You're taking those steps to reverse fatty liver disease. So what you want to do is you want to extend the period of fat burning time. Okay. And it's really easy to do this. Let me just explain to you something. All right. Let's say that you sleep 8 hours a day. That's what we recommend because we know that 7 to 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours, you're getting the enough sleep in your body to be able to restore your gut microbiome. You're able to actually flush the toxins from your brain. You're able to rebuild your immune system. There's all kinds of important things that actually happens while you're sleeping. But one of the most important things that's happened when you're sleeping and not eating, fasting, is that your body will shift gears like a Ferrari, okay, away from storing fat, which is what it does during the day, storing energy into body fat. At night, when you're sleeping, it shifts gears and it focuses on burning fat from your fuel tanks, all right? So when you're sleeping and you're fasting intermittently, you're burning fat and you can actually burn it from your liver. So what you want to do is extend the time on both sides of the night where you're actually able to get a little bit more fat burning. This is an important step if you want to reverse fatty liver, okay? It's something you do by yourself. So let me tell you how to actually do that, okay? Now, let's say that you eat dinner at 7 o'clock and you eat for about an hour at 8 o'clock. When you're done eating and you put the dishes away, that's it. Don't eat again until the next day, all right? So let's say that you put the dishes away at 8 o'clock in the evening. You go to sleep at 11 o'clock. I know some of you guys will be going to bed a little bit later, some earlier. I'm just using this as an example. From 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, that's 3 hours. 3 hours that you're giving your body a chance to burn fat beyond the time of sleeping. So let's say you're sleeping from 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night to 7 a.m. in the morning. That's 8 hours, right? Well, if you don't eat anything after dinner, don't interrupt your body's perception of fasting with a midnight snack, bedtime snack. Nope, don't do it. All right, when the dish is away, that's it. Your body will quickly recognize that you're not eating anymore. And so from between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock, that's 3 hours. Now you're going to add that to the 8 hours that you're naturally sleeping from 11 to 7. That's 3 plus 8 hours. That's 11 hours. All right. And then if you don't eat anything after you get up in the morning, let's say for an hour, don't eat anything for an hour period of time. Guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to extend your intermittent fasting window 3 hours plus 8 hours. It's 11 hours plus 1 more hour. If you wait an hour between the time you get up and eat something, that's 12 hours. 12 out of 24 hours, you've spent half your existence, half your day in metabolism mode where you're burning down extra body fat. So that's something that you might want to consider if you actually have fatty liver. Give your body more window to be able to burn down that extra body fat. All right. Now, if you want to actually push it even further, skip breakfast altogether, right? And don't eat until lunchtime. Now let's do the math again. From 8 o'clock, when you put the dishes away, to 11 o'clock, that's 3 hours. 11 o'clock to 7 in the morning, that's 8 hours. That's 3 plus 8 hours. That's 11 hours. All right. And then from 7 in the morning, you're not going to eat until lunchtime. Now you're actually going to extend it to 11 o'clock or noon. Add another 4 hours to it. Can have an early lunch. All right. Now you've actually fasted for 16 hours. Right. And a lot of people skip breakfast. I skip breakfast pretty often. I can make it. You get a little hungry, but that's okay. If you just focus on something else, you'll power right through it. And then eat lunch. Eat lunch at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. And now you've actually given your body 16 hours of fasting, fat burning. Now, if you've got fatty liver, might be worthwhile for you to try doing that at least a few times a week. All right, you will burn fat. Now you're going to get hungry when you do that, if you go 16 hours. So what I got to tell you is that if you decide to go this route, to fast for 16 hours, take advantage of your evening time, and then the shoulder time between before bedtime and then afterwards in the morning. Don't overeat when you finally sit down to eat. All right, for lunch, you're going to be hungry. You're going to want to overeat. Do not overeat. Remember, fatty liver can result from overeating. Definitely don't want to keep making that fatty liver worse. So you got to have enough discipline that when you finally sit down to eat, you do not overeat. Here's what I say. Take only 50% of what you would normally load onto the plate. 50. All right. So you're not going to be eating a lot, and eat slowly, because when you eat slowly, you'll get this, you'll be able to savor the flavors and enjoy the food, but it'll actually give you time to allow your stomach to signal to your brain that you've got food there and it's time to slow down your appetite. So if you eat slowly and you don't eat too much, you'll actually taper off, and that way you won't overload your body and make the fatty liver problem even worse. All right. So that's my kind of like little pro tip for you on how to actually expand your fasting window, natural fasting window, to burn down harmful body fat. Now, if you're thinking like, you know what, that's asking a lot. I don't know if I want to fast all morning after fasting in the evening. Let me just tell you, if you got fatty liver, it's a serious health problem. You might want to do everything in your power in order to burn away some of that extra body fat that's stuck in your liver. Unpack your liver so it can actually recover itself. You definitely don't want to head towards a liver transplant. That is something that you definitely don't want. All right. So this makes fatty liver something you can actually recover from, and intermittent fasting is a worthwhile and pretty easy way to achieve it. All right. Now, what's the second thing you can do? Well, start exercising, right? Now, think about this. You've heard about the old adage, calories in and calories out. Well, you're actually not spitting out calories. You're burning down the calories, right? It's energy in, fuel in, and you're burning down the fuel, all right? So to burn down excess body fat and unload your liver, because some of that fat's stuck in your liver, you just need to burn some more calories. You can eat less, but you want to burn some more calories. And if you have fatty liver, take this really, really seriously, all right? How do you actually, get on your feet and exercise? Listen, if you're motivated to do it, go for it. Go by yourself. You can join a gym, join an exercise group, or maybe consider hiring a trainer to at least get you in the right direction and get a program going that you can actually stick with. All right. But hitting the gym, by the way, is not the only way to get exercise. All right. You should take the approach that any kind of physical activity, all right, as long as you make it activity, is really, really important. Anything that you do to stay in motion will actually help burn calories. What I like to tell people to do is, if you're not an exerciser and you've got fatty liver, hey, listen, take a brisk walk every single day, twice a day. All right. Do it once in the morning, walk for half an hour briskly. All right. Where you're really getting your heart rate up. A little bit hard to actually have a whole conversation when you're walking in a brisk walk. Do it for 30 minutes. You're going to be burning down some of that extra harmful body fat. Okay. You do it before breakfast. You can do it after breakfast, and then do it after dinner, right? So you've just eaten dinner and now you're actually going to burn away some extra body fat. That's great. All right. Now you've given a kickstart to what's going to happen at night after you fall asleep and when you're intermittently fasting. Other little tips of things that you can do: go play a sport. If you like tennis, go ahead and get it on the tennis court. But even ping pong, all right, you could do that in a basement, all right, is actually a good way to burn down fat. I don't know if you've seen people who really get into ping pong to break into a sweat. That's a good sign you're burning down extra body fat. Here's another no-brainer. If you're going anyplace, take the stairs every single time. Ditch the elevator, take the stairs. Obviously, you want to make sure you're in good enough shape to take the stairs. And I'm not telling you to take 20 flights of steps, but if you're going up a couple of flights, go ahead and take the stairs. If you're, in a shopping center and there's an escalator versus stairs, take the stairs. You're going to be burning down body fat. Every opportunity you can do that, to try to burn some body fat. All right. Sit as little as possible. Now, I know in today's world, most of us are sitting down and working at the computer most of the time. You got a fatty liver. You got to take it seriously. You got a serious medical condition. You definitely don't want a liver transplant. You definitely don't want your liver to fail. You definitely don't want to lose your detox function of your liver. It's worth it. All right. Get on your feet. Do something that keeps you in motion. All right. Listen, ballroom dancing is another great way to actually get moving, and it actually can do it fun with other people. And so now it's also a social activity as well. But I will tell you something, and you might be surprised at this. Any kind of motion is better than no motion. So studies have been done, by the way, of even fidgeting, tap, 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 or shaking the leg, or tapping your knee, shaking your knee. Like some people get really annoyed when other people do that, but if you're sitting and you shake your knee like I'm doing right now, that burns down calories, that burns down body fat. All right. So I wrote about this in my book, Eat to Beat Your Diet. It's quite surprising, but any kind of motion will actually start to burn away a little extra body fat. So a lot of ways to burn down fat, burn away calories. This can help to reverse fatty liver disease. All right. And this is just like one life-saving action you can take, is to get into motion. Remember, you are saving your body's detox organ. You have to do this. And by the way, if you're somebody who's, interested in longevity and you want to add more years ahead of you, as many years as you can get, then you really got to work to reverse your fatty liver. All right. It's not going to turn out well for you, and you're definitely not going to reach your longevity goals if you don't actually address this. This is why I'm making this video super important. These are easy steps you can actually take. It doesn't require a lot. It's not expensive to do this, but you got to do it. All right. Okay. Number three, third thing you can actually do, if you want to actually start to reverse fatty liver, one thing you can do is super easy. I'm giving you the easy stuff that doesn't cost money. All right. Drink a tall glass of cold water before every meal. All right. So whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, I think I told you you're going to skip breakfast, right? Before lunch and dinner, just pour yourself a tall glass of cold water, all right? And here's why. Studies have shown that when you drink cold water, all right, cold water goes in your stomach. Now your core temperature cools down. There are sensors, temperature sensors, thermostats in your stomach that reads, oh man, we're like really cold. Our core temperature is cooling off. We got to warm up, all right? And so to warm up, after sensing cold temperature, your body turns on a process called thermogenesis. Thermal for heat, genesis generating heat. So your body wants you to generate heat. And where do you think the body generates heat from? It generates heat from a special kind of fat called brown fat. Well, hello. If you're looking to take control of your health and you want to use food as medicine to optimize your health, then I invite you to check out my Eat to Beat Disease course. I personally developed all the materials. It is fully online and packed with practical, science-based strategies and everyday tips that you can start using right away to boost your body's natural defenses that protect your health and fight disease. So whether you're wanting to prevent a disease or overcome one, or whether you just want to feel your best, my Eat to Beat Disease course has everything you need to make powerful changes in your life. Learn more about it by clicking the link below. Brown fat is a special kind of fat that's different than white fat. White fat is the wiggly jiggly, lumpy bumpy stuff. Brown fat is wafer thin, and it's not wiggly jiggly. It's really thin, and it's plastered around your neck, a little bit behind your breastbone, between your shoulder blades, a little bit in your belly. All right. And cold temperatures will fire up, ignite this brown fat to burn down a body fat, because in order to generate heat, it needs fuel. Brown fat will steal the fuel from the excess white fat. And now you're going to eventually start to unburden your liver, your fatty liver as well. And by the way, this cold temperature thing with cold drinking water and turning on thermogenesis, that leads to weight loss or burning down fat. This is actually also why taking a daily cold plunge will also work as well. I don't encourage that unless you're somebody that's really into a cold plunge. I don't like to go plunge into cold water. It's too rough on my body. And by the way, if you're thinking about doing a cold plunge, I strongly recommend that you speak with your medical doctor, your healthcare provider about it, because not everyone's going to tolerate a cold plunge well, especially if you have cardiovascular disease. You might not want to do that. But cold temperatures, cold core temperatures in your stomach from drinking a tall glass of cold water will trigger the sensors in your body to say warm up. They'll turn on thermogenesis from your brown fat, and in order to generate that heat, it'll actually use the fuel and steal the fuel from fatty tissue, including fatty liver, and now you'll begin to burn down excess body fat. All right. So this is actually something that's really cool, but it's not just cold temperatures or cold water that can do this. There are even foods you can eat, and I wrote about these foods in Eat to Beat Your Diet, my book, that actually can turn on brown fat as well. But here's what I'm telling you. Right now, in this video, I'm trying to tell you what you can actually do without putting extra calories in your body, all right, to burn down some of that extra body fat. When it comes to fatty liver, you really, really want to cut down overall on your calories, even with healthy food, all right, no matter where the calories come from, all right? Now, here's the other thing about drinking a glass of water, all right, and this doesn't have to do with temperature, it has to do with volume. When you actually glug down a tall glass of water, you're going to be filling up your stomach, right? So think about your stomach like a balloon that doesn't have any air or anything else in it. And you remember making water balloons? You pull open the end of the balloon and you stretch it around the faucet, the spigot. You turn on the spigot, water will flow in there. What's going to happen? You're going to stretch out the walls of the balloon. It's going to expand. So think about your stomach as a balloon that you're filling with water when you're drinking a glass of water. And what happens when the balloon expands? It stretches. Now, your stomach has special receptors, sensors that are called stretch receptors as well. And when you activate the stretch receptors by drinking a glass of water, filling up your stomach, your stomach will send a signal to your brain that tells your brain, yeah, you're kind of full. All right. And your brain starts to shut down your appetite, turns down your appetite. Doesn't kill it completely, but it actually makes you feel less hungry. When you feel less hungry, you're less likely to overeat because you're kind of feeling like you're full before you've even begun eating. All right. Now, this is the actual thing that you want to know is that drinking a glass of water before a meal, that's an easy thing, right? Just have that glass, pour that glass before you start eating any food. Now, one additional thing I gotta tell you, drinking a glass of water before a meal isn't just because it's a beverage when it comes to your fatty liver. It's actually a way to burn down extra body fat while at the same time decreasing your appetite, which can be a really, really helpful thing, all right? The key to tipping the scales towards reversing fatty liver disease is not to actually overload the liver with yet even more fat. Cut that down, eat less, do more, burn down that fat, and you'll start to reverse course, all right? What you want to do is backtrack on the problem that started by burning more fat, all right? That's the whole exercise thing. That's the thermogenesis thing. But you also want to eat less as well. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the fourth thing that you can actually do, all right, and this is a no-brainer if you want to reverse fatty liver, you got to cut down on your calories. I kind of mentioned this before. It's actually not to overeat, all right? But one thing you can actually do to really kind of focus on not overloading yourself with calories is cut out the carbs. Now, I'm somebody that tries to encourage people to embrace food, including carbs, enjoy your meals, get pleasure out of it. Like be a foodie, enjoy the food that you're eating. But when in case of fatty liver disease, you got a serious health problem, man. You got to really work on this. And so I'm not afraid to tell you to take a little bit of a more deliberate and more aggressive step by cutting out the carbs. And this means eliminating bread, bagels, pasta, snack foods like chips, pizza, cakes, cookies. Cut all that stuff out. All right. These carbs are a source of fuel that loads up your fat cells, all right, which is exactly what you don't need when you're dealing with fatty liver. All right, so cut down or cut out altogether the carbs in your diet. All right, and the key thing is you're going to swap with the carbs. Put other nutrient-dense foods like plant-based foods. They're going to get a meet your body's nutritional needs, and some of the polyphenols in foods like spinach and tomatoes and kale and broccoli, onions, they will actually turn on thermogenesis to help you burn down extra body fat as well. All right. This is why, by the way, switching to meals away from carbs to include mostly whole plant-based foods, that's the way to go for overall health. Again, you're going to get polyphenols, chlorogenic acid, the carotenoid like lycopene, ellagic acid, proanthocyanidins. These will actually activate your body's ability to burn down harmful body fat, improve your metabolism, turn up your energy, all right, fuel, all right, burning down fuel, and you're going to get those micronutrients as well from the plants. Dietary fiber is something that also comes from whole plant-based foods that actually gets down to your stomach, helps your gut health, your healthy microbiome, and plus the plants can give you all the macro and micronutrients that you actually need. Plant-based foods are also source of calories, by the way, so you just got to be careful about how much you consume. Now, some of them have a lot of carbs, like beans, for example. Now, beans are normally super, super healthy. I encourage people to eat beans all the time. But if you have fatty liver disease, you want to cut down on those extra carbs because that's actually one way to not overeat, not overload your liver, not make a problem that's already bad even worse. All right. Now, if you need help figuring out how to design a proper low carb diet for fatty liver disease, you might want to think about consulting with a nutritionist. All right, just to get a little guidance at the beginning to help you design what's the right way to go forward. All right, and be very, very careful by what you see online when it comes to nutrition. Much more reliable if you work with somebody who's a professional, a trained nutrition expert to help you with a diet for fatty liver disease. You don't want to be monkeying around with a disease state. And by the same time with your diet, you don't want to take like an amateur hour, somebody who's got false information, misinformation, and steer you down the wrong path. In this case, with fatty liver disease, I strongly encourage you to look for a nutritionist to consult with. You can ask your doctor if there's one that he or she can recommend. All right. Note, by the way, I'm not rattling off a whole list of foods that you can eat right now that you can bake in your diet, because when you got fatty liver disease, you really need a professional to be able to assist you with making those right choices. All right. Now, here's the other thing. Burning down fat is really kind of a personal situation. Everyone's different. You got different body size, different activity levels, different maybe you have other health conditions, all right, that you got to deal with. So what I actually say is that when you actually have fatty liver disease and you're talking about diet, work with a nutrition expert to be able to help guide you in developing the right plan. I can't emphasize this enough, all right? For fatty liver disease, forget what you kind of are hearing online. This is something you want to work with a professional on. There's no one size fits all plan that's going to work for you, all right? Very, very important to be able to keep this in mind. All right, finally, the fifth thing I'm telling you, if you are trying to get rid of reverse fatty liver disease, is you definitely have to cut out all sugar sweetened foods from your diet. Any food that's got added sugar. All right. And you know what that means? Candies, cakes, sugar sweetened cereals, sweetened snacks, ice cream, popsicles, soda, regular or diet. All right. These are, because actually, I guess regular, these are all foods that actually have added sugars. They're all very, very common. People love to eat them. All right. Now, people without fatty liver disease need to be careful about these foods because they've got this added sugar can easily overwhelm their metabolism. And these foods are very, very common. But if you have a fatty liver disease, eating these types of foods, like candies and cakes and sugar sweetened cereals, et cetera, really terrible for your liver. You can take a bad situation and make it worse by eating more foods with added sugars. And by the way, not only are these sweetened foods, but a lot of them also contain a lot of carbs as well. So you get the sugar, carbs from the sugar, you get carbs from the food itself. And now guess what? It's just going to get loaded back into the liver. And now you're going to take your fatty liver and make it even worse and make it harder to reverse your situation. All right. Listen, you started with a liver that's laden with fat. You're trying to get rid of that fat. You got to eat less carbs so you're not loading up more fat. You got to burn off more fat. All right. And eventually you're going to tip these scales in your own favor so you can still have enough energy, because food is our fuel. We need energy, but you want your body to run smoothly, but kind of dispensing with or dumping the fuel out. All right. You don't want to actually overload on that fuel. It leads to a disaster when it spills out into your body, accumulates in your liver, and then takes over your liver and then shuts down your detox organ. All right. Now, when it comes to fuel, food that we eat, always go for high quality fuel, right? If you have a car and you're loading it up with gas, you can use cheap fuel every now and then. All right. Your car is not going to feel too much. But if every time you fill up the gas in your car, you are only using the cheapest quality fuel, that's like every time you're eating poor quality foods, you're eating ultra processed foods or sugar sweetened foods. What you're going to do is you're going to wear down your body. You're going to, and you're going to overwhelm your body actually with all these carbs and calories. Same thing with your car. If you put the lowest quality fuel in your car, guarantee you it's not going to last. Your car's not going to last as long as somebody who takes good care of their car by adding high quality fuel. All right. And of all these sugar sweetened things, soda's probably the worst offender. Now, you probably heard me talk about this before in another video, but one 12-ounce can of soda, typically, this is the stuff you can buy from a store in a 6-pack. All right. We've all drank it before. All right. These colas and other kinds of things, they got a lot of added sugar in it. On average, a 12-ounce can of soda has 9 teaspoons of sugar added to it. All right. Drink that. If you got fatty liver, it pretty much gets loaded right back into your liver. Totally not what you want to do. Okay, I covered a lot in this video, but I hope you learned something new about the topic of fatty liver. And as a physician, I can tell you kind of like how concerned we are when we actually see patients with fatty liver disease. And I hope that I've given you something to walk away from this video understanding, number one, fatty liver is a serious health condition. You don't want to mess around with it. And number two, you need to take some decisive actions with the help of your doctor. But there are some things that you can do on your own to tailor your personal nutrition plan and your personal lifestyle change that makes it fit you who you actually are. All right. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next video. Dr. Lee out. Hi there. If you enjoyed watching this video, I know you'll love the next one. Stay here and check it out, and I'll see you there.